Season 3, Episode 5 of Surreal Estate, titled The Gardener, starts off where we see a couple, Jan and Paul, arriving at their house at night. We see that they're living at the house, but they are getting a divorce, so to speak. The relationship is not there anymore. Paul sleeps upstairs. Jan sleeps on the couch. And it's kind of unbearing, so to speak. And Paul does things in the house to clean up. Jan will do stuff outside. Now, as Jan is cleaning up outside, she meets a man, Blake. Blake is kind of that weird going vibe kind of guy, but he stands outside their home at night and kind of cuts his finger and leaves a drop of blood, and this purple flower blooms. And we're like, what is really going on? We then see Luke looking over a stack of papers, and it's an electric bill. He gives it to Augie. It's because Augie is spending so much time in the lab and keeping things plugged in overnight that the electricity bill is through the roof. Now, if you remember in my previous episode review, I stated that I wanted more of Lomax's story. Give me that. Well, ask and you shall receive. And in this episode, we got a more focused, character-driven episode of Lomax. We see Lomax going to meet her parents at the funeral home, and she goes downstairs to help her father with, preparing a body. And he says dinner's ready. And he's like, but we want to talk to you about something. They go back upstairs. They have a dinner. And basically the father and the mother are like, we want to give the business over to you. And Lomax is like stunned because she didn't expect that at all. But she likes working with Luke, and her parents are like, well, just think about it over time. Luke then later on, kind of shows a house to another person, and we see a former enemy in there, and it's Rita. Rita shows up, and we haven't seen Rita in a very, very long time in this series, and it's just a back and forth bickering, which is really, really fun. And then we see Susan kind of, Jan, and kind of compliment her on her landscaping, and they kind of discuss the relationship with Jan and Paul. And Jan's like, I didn't do this. Some guy named Blake did it. And it's like, this flower, what is going on? This flower is causing something. And we see that the aspect of what everything is going on is really, really different and something unexpected. I always do like the main story focus of this series, but for me, this episode, Lomax's story, was more interesting and engaging than the main story between Luke and Susan and everything else. It's kind of fun because then you have a scene where Lomax is working on the body that is supposed to be prepared for the funeral, and all of a sudden the body just starts waking up. Basically, it's her subconscious, and the pros and cons weighing the difference. And kind of the funeral happens, and Lomax looking around, talking to her parents, and then you see Rita there, and Rita is poaching people for work and everything, because she tries, if that person died, I can get on top of selling that house for faster money and get on top of things before Luke does anything. So then we see how Jan gives Susan the flower. Susan goes to Augie. Augie gives it to Tag. Tag looks it up, and we find out that this kind of flower is a sheep eater plant. And kind of the interesting thing is that we see how it's a native to Chile. It's a carnivorous plant that kind of lures animals in with their scent and trapping them and in that enclosure and everything. They starve to death, and then their bodies in a way kind of eat each other in its own thing, which is really weird and interesting to say, but they eat the nutrients and they flourish as a plant. Where we find out that, it's a local legend that a woman, in Jan's case, went missing so many years ago, and it's the whole thing. Augie, Susan, Luke show up, and, they do everything that they can. They help Jan and Paul, and kind of they sever everything at the roots. And they kind of kill this being or entity or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't demonic or anything like that. And we see everything happening, and then Lomax meets with her parents, which is the sub-story in this episode. And then we see how Lomax tells her parents, like, Thank you for understanding, but I'm not going to do this or take over. I like where I am. I like who I am as a person. Luke then meets with Megan, and he decides to cut ties with their friendship because he admits that he still loves her. And Megan reminds him that you didn't fight for me. Whenever I did my own thing, you didn't fight for me. You didn't tell me to stay. And it's a back and forth at the Telltale Heart. And it's like, ooh, escalation is rising and it's getting crazy. And it's just like, whoa. And then Megan kind of urges him to let her know what will happen if he figures it out. And then Luke just sits there heartbroken. And that's the end of the episode. Very poignant, really emotional episode. You can see that Luke is kind of spiraling out of control. All of this, the case between now that Tyler's showing up, or Elvis the elephant, and it's just really, really interesting. There is a scene where Augie comes in and tells Luke that, you know, this Tyler guy is not who you say he is. I just have a bad feeling about it. And it's an interesting story. Where's it going to go from here? That's the big question. Ever since Tyler came into Luke's life and Elvis the elephant, you kind of see slowly that the character, as I stated, is spiraling out of control. But what will happen? Like I stated, also, the main story focus between the Sheep Eater plant, Jan and Paul, was okay. But Lomax's story, much more better and interesting, and I did like how that was focused on. Very curious to see what's going to happen now that we are halfway through the season, because what will happen in the rest of the season? Looks like, you know, the episodes are going to get crazier, we're going to get more info and not, but I'm hoping that we get a closure to what's happening with Luke and everything that is going on, because this is a great show. If you haven't seen Surreal Estate, please do so. It's so good. If you like the aspect of paranormal, real estate, how everything works, it's like this episode felt like an old 90s, early 2000s Goosebumps episode, which is really, really fun. You see the practical effects, the makeup, and then there are some scenes where it's like, whoa, what is actually happening? It's fun, it's good, it's entertaining, which is what I absolutely love. So let me know in the comment section what you thought about Season 3, Episode 5 of Surreal Estate. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you think of it? What did you think about the aspect of the main story and the sub-story? Did you like one or the other? And what do you think is going to happen in the rest of this season? And what is this whole thing between Tyler, Elvis the elephant, and Luke? And do you think Luke will actually, you know, kind of be ready for Megan again? And what will happen to every other single character in this series? Let me know in the comment section about all the questions I just asked. I'm Mr. Filmstock. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you all in the next review video. And be sure you tune in next week to my Season 3, Episode 6 review of Surreal Estate.